Chain smoke your problems away. Smokepit Fairy Tales Part 4, Chapter 11, Before It's Already Over. Sergeant Major Glaedwine sat in the briefing room staring down at the projection screen. She'd watched the same video at least 10 times and didn't understand how General Piroska or the rest of the staff couldn't understand what was happening. It only took her one viewing. She rubbed her forehead when Piroska said to play the video again. Glaedwine fingered her mousy hair back over her ear and mindlessly gazed at the frightening boar before her. A large group of sailors and Marines at the bar were caught on camera brawling. It started with a disagreement, as they always do. Then, someone threw a punch. Since they were all important, hadn't had anything to drink in a few months, they were all hammered before feeling the need to throw down. When the authorities finally did show up, they used their batons on the smaller group of them who weren't even in the fight. They were weaving through the dance hall and under the tables, trying to get away from the drunken violence. Glaedwine's cheek rested in her palm. She flicked her hand open and stated,
"This wouldn't have been an issue. Some jackass didn't put it up on their social media page."
I don't know about that, Sergeant Major. There's still the issue of our sailors and Marines making an ass of themselves in a foreign colony, embarrassing the Navy and Marine Corps team. It's possibly straining relations with them and the U.S.
Piroska replied.
Now it's the best-selling show.
Glaedwine shook her head.
But you're right. It doesn't matter if this was captured or not. We just can't cover it up.
The general grunted and rested his chin on his fist.
What do you suggest we do?
Glaedwine looked at her watch and stood up.
NJP, the Marine's responsible. Put the MEU on lockdown and let the ambassador deal with the international relations issue. That's his job.
She grabbed her cover and headed towards the door.
If you'll excuse me, I have some other business to attend to.
Thatch turned the key off and the sloop's motor puttered out. He pulled his pack out from the storage area behind the seats, which was just large enough to place that one bag, and opened the door. He slung the pack over his shoulder and lit a cigarette. Ma didn't have a garage and her car wasn't in the driveway. He figured he'd burn one before he went into the house. The night was cool enough to ignore the humidity. He blew smoke and leaned on his fender. Thatch looked up at the Spanish moss hanging from the oak trees in the front yard and at the green blades of grass growing from the red soil. He decided he didn't want to go inside just yet, so he walked around the house and sat on the back porch to look at the rusty desert that started a few hundred yards after the woods and the small river. None of the trees were that tall. They weren't old enough, besides the bamboo. They terraformed the planet faster than they thought would have been scientifically possible. But the plants still had to grow like plants. Thatch slipped off his bomber jacket, sat down in a wicker chair, let the night's air soak into his arms, and fell into a nap. Thatch woke up to a cold feeling on his face. He shook his head awake and slapped at whatever was pressed on his cheek. His hand met warm skin and an icy glass bottle. He looked up to see his ma holding a beer bottle to his face. Glaedwine smiled down at Thatch.
Good morning, sweetheart.
Thatch took the beer.
Hey, Ma.
He stood up out of the chair and squeezed her with his arms. She hugged him back.
How was the meal?
Thatch twisted the top off the brew.
Ship life. Nothing too exciting.
You went down and recovered the mech, didn't you?
Glaedwine sat down in the chair next to Thatch's. Thatch took a drink.
Yeah, but nothing really happened. We grabbed the pilot and got out. It wasn't anything like shipboarding.
Yeah. I mean, thank God you didn't have to do any of that.
Yeah, it's kind of needed. I got juniors that haven't seen combat, and I don't want them to grow up and have to lead Marines into combat without experience.
Glaedwine rolled her eyes.
Okay. Yeah, how's everything at Casal?
Same old stuff. I was only there for a couple days before we were cut on leave, then the drive back home wasn't too bad.
Did you forget your key? Didn't look like you went inside.
Nah, I just wanted to take a nap.
All right.
Glaedwine pulled out a cigarette, tapped the butt of the pack a few times, then placed it on her lips and lit up.
Hasn't been up here.
Glaedwine exhaled a thick plume of smoke and then relaxed back into her chair.
Headquarters bullshit.
She took another drag.
When I was a junior Marine, I thought people at this level would be doing something a lot different than this. I don't know what I thought it'd be. Hell, that was before the Pyrescents showed up and humans were alone in this universe, nesting on Earth. I figured maybe it was more office work, but I've been spending my damn time either just bullshitting with Marines at different commands or looking at dumb shit people put on the internet to make sure it doesn't violate anything.
Yeah, but I bet you get to see some pretty funny memes.
You're not wrong. How long are you staying?
I'll probably start driving back next Friday.
Do you have plans for while you're here?
No, I'm just gonna sit around and nap, hang out with you when you're not at work and read a bit.
You don't want to go out and do anything?
If you do.
Thatch spent the next week drinking beer, reading, playing with the cats, laying around in the sun, and texting Samum when she'd text back. When Glaedwine would come home at night, he'd have dinner started. She would shoo him away from the stove, saying that cooking for him was her responsibility. She didn't get to act motherly often. Being the Sergeant Major of the Marine Corps held a completely different type of authority. The days passed slowly, but Thatch was more than okay with that. The slower the days went by, the longer he'd feel he was away from work. Most of his nights were spent watching old science fiction movies with Glaedwine and making fun of how poorly people in the past predicted the future. He did nothing, and it was exactly what he wanted it to be. 2 weeks later, at 0500, Indian Company stood in formation outside of their barracks. First Sergeant Alires took accountability and put the Marines in the hands of their platoon sergeants. Duke gave it over to the squad leaders. Thatch, Yorrick, and Akan told the platoons to get chow and be back at the barracks at 7.
Do anything fun over leave?
Akan asked Yorrick and Thatch.
I just hung out with my ma. I didn't do shit.
Yorrick smiled.
I went to a circus. I think I might want to look into mime lessons.
Akan and Thatch gave Yorrick concerned looks.
What about you?
Not a lot.
She pulled out a cigarette.
Spent time with the kids during the afternoon, banged the wife at night, then caught up on video games while the kids were at school.
Sounds like a good time.
The three of them went back to Thatch's room, grabbed a carton of eggs, and made their way to the barracks kitchen to start cooking breakfast. Yorrick leaned against the cupboards as Thatch warmed up the stove.
Did you guys read about what the Russians are doing with their androids?
Which ones?
The construction bots.
No?
So check this out. You know how they used them for basic construction and maintenance?
Thatch and Akan nodded their heads.
They were never an issue. I remember when we took that cruiser off of Mercury, they just ignored us while we assaulted the ship.
Yeah, well now they're programming them for combat.
That's gonna be fun.
Thatch groaned sarcastically. He beat a dozen eggs into a pan with a bit of milk, salt, and pepper.
Yeah, but that makes sense for them to do. Are they combat models, or are they going to be all in one?
I don't know. I mean, from what I saw, they're adding defensive features to the ones that they have, so if the ship gets boarded, they'll help fight. But I don't know if there'll be any units designed specifically for combat that do nothing else.
That would suck.
Thatch continued stirring the eggs.
We have to change tactics and get new weapons.
Yeah, bullets not going to stop a machine. Especially if they armour them.
We'd have to use plasma or direct energy weapons.
Those fucking things are heavier than shit. And I've only got to shoot them a few times. Direct energy wouldn't be terrible because of the,
Thatch tried to think of the word he wanted to use.
You know.
He pretended he was firing a rifle and pulled his shoulder back with each trigger pull.
Recoil?
Yeah, that.
Jackass.
Thatch showed him his middle finger.
But plasma would be a bitch to carry around.
Yeah, they're too bulky to carry around on a ship. And the recoil would fuck you in 0G.
Thatch scraped the scrambled eggs onto 3 plates, and the 3 of them ate.
So what are you guys gonna do with your squads today?
Akan took a bite of her meal.
Take them to the armoury and do gun drills all morning. Then I'm going to have Doc Christchurch give a class on why it's important to take radiation pills.
Protein or Anglic?
Protein.
I have to take both. Half and half.
Akan and Yorrick nodded in understanding.
What about you?
And I'm gonna run them into the dirt, then probably just chill out on standby.
When they were finished, Thatch went back to his room, set his alarm for 6:45, and laid down. He texted Samum,
Hey, good morning. Hope you're having a good day.
then closed his eyes until his alarm sounded. He went to grab his squad and carried them out with the plan of the day, texting Samum intermittently throughout, arranging to watch a movie that night together. After the battalion was secured for the night, Thatch went back to his room and texted Samum.
Hey, I'm off. Do you still want to watch this flick?
He ate something quick from the microwave and pulled out a large sheet of paper to paint on. He taped it to a foam board which he used to hold it steady, and pulled up a few pictures on his computer to use as a reference. He started penciling in the broad idea of what he wanted, starting to put the pieces together. The background was an ocean crashing over the stars of the Milky Way. In the middle were 2 passing starships. They were both too large to fit on the sheet and bled off to the sides. On the left ship, he drew Samum sitting on the railing. She was drawn at an extreme proportion. If she were to scale, she wouldn't be more than a speck next to the massive cruisers. Thatch's phone buzzed. He checked it to see if the text was from Samum.
I'm putting in laundry, but yes, I'll watch it with you.
He texted back.
Cool, I'll put it in. See you in a few.
He turned and spooled the film up on his TV, leaving it paused at the 1-second mark, and then went back to penciling in the artwork. After a few minutes, he decided that he didn't want her to see it before it was done, so he put it inside his wall locker. He surfed the internet on his phone for a while. Nothing particular caught his eye. He looked at the time and noticed that it had been more than 45 minutes since Samum had texted him. He checked to see if she sent him something that perhaps he'd missed. Nothing. Thatch said fuck it and started the movie without her. About an hour into the movie, Samum sent him a text.
Have you already started watching it yet?
Thatch rolled his eyes.
No, bitch, I've just been sitting here staring at the wall.
He was frustrated but didn't want to be impolite. He replied.
No, I got caught up reading something about the war.
He took a deep breath and thought.
Starting the movie over won't be a big deal. I'll just do that when she comes.
She immediately texted him back.
Oh, well, do you want me to bring over pizza?
I ate already, but you can bring it over.
He held the phone in his hand with the screen facing him as the hero in the movie went through his struggles and eventually defeated the villain. The credits rolled. Thatch grabbed his cigarettes and walked out to the smoke pit. He sat on the bench next to Stockton, who was fidgeting with her glasses and burning a red.
What's up?
Nothing.
Thatch tried to sound cool. He didn't want to bring up that he was upset about getting ditched. He lit up a smoke.
Just been chilling.
Yeah, me too.
Stockton put her glasses back on.
Give up on contacts?
I think for a bit.
Thatch inhaled his cigarette and looked across the courtyard to Samum's barracks. The light in her room was on, but the curtains were drawn. He could see that she was in there, but not what she was doing. He checked his watch and it was almost 2000.
Hey, Stockton.
Yeah, man?
Thatch thought about something to say that would break the silence. The air wasn't awkward, but he wanted to talk about something, anything. He needed a bit of interaction, but he couldn't think of anything he wanted to say.
I'll see you tomorrow.
He flicked his cigarette to the dirt.
You too.
The both of them walked to their rooms. Thatch kicked off his shoes and fell into bed in his jeans. His phone buzzed. Samum had sent him.
I think I'm going to pass on the movie. It's too close to my bedtime. I'm about to pass out, and I don't want to be rude.
Thatch grew angry. He took a few breaths to calm himself down, but it didn't work. The rage inside of him built.
We have fucking plans for this, and your idea of not being rude is telling me that you're not coming after it's already over? What the fuck, bitch?
He punched the letters into his phone.
That's cool.
And went back outside to smoke.
Chapter 11.
Before it's already over.
Test. 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 Testing. Test, 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 test. Try it again over here. Test. Test this. Test this in your butt.
This is the fight from the Mew.
But nothing really happened. We grabbed the pilot and got... God damn it, body. Stop.
I just did that weird emphasis of cigarette again.
I'm gonna punch my goddamn fucking liver in the dick.
This is Hollis reading for Samum, chapter 11, Before It's Already Over. So aptly named.
Gotta read that again.
Chapter 11.
Now it's the best-selling show, but you're right, it doesn't matter if it's captioned, we just can't cover it up.
Glaedwine.
What do you suggest we do? Very grave, very presidential, very General Piroska.
Glaedwine pulled out a cigarette, tapped the butt a few times.
This is Yorrick, chapter 11. Before it's already bloody over, mate. Before it's already over, I just added in the bloody because Australian.
Take them to the armoury and do gun drills all morning. Then I'm going to have take them to the armoury.
Crikey, mate. Crikey, mate. Crikey. Bloody marvellous, mate. We'd have to use plasma or direct energy weapons. Jackass. Yeah, it's got to be jackass. Because jackass is an American way of saying it. Because for some reason you miss out the R in arse.
Virescence. How the fuck do you pronounce this, Trip?
Ass. Arse. Arse. Crikey, mate. Arse. Jack arse. Jack ass. Jack arse.
He sat on the bench next to Stockton, who was fidgeting with her glasses and bummed her
I think I'm going to pass on the movie. It's too close to my bedtime. I'm about to pass out, and I don't want to be rude. What a bitch.